Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, July 10th. This is Bill DiOrio speaking to you from an undisclosed location in North Boulder. And now that we have the primaries behind us, I know who my opponent will be. It will be Junie Joseph, who we ran against last time. And I wanted to record a little video where I just kind of outline what her positions are on the issues for the voters. I really, call me naive, but I really believe if people understood Junie's position on the issues, they would not vote for her. And I think there would be a lot more support for my position. Now, it is necessary for people to look beyond political labels. I mean, I'm running as a Republican. I used to be a Democrat committee person. The party and the party I just thought went off the rails. But the issues are really the things that I think are more important. Junie is a nice person. I believe she has good intentions. And again, she wants to make the world a better place. That's the classic progressive line. But the question is, how does she want to do this? And we all know where the road that's paved with good intentions ends up. The whole idea of progressivism goes back to it goes back to the French Revolution, or maybe it goes back to the biblical times. But the idea is that man is the measure of justice. Rules come from humans. The authority bubbles up from the people. There is no hierarchy. There's no. We're not subject to any kind of divine laws. Ten Commandments, forget about it. But the driving philosophy for progressivism is called the dialectic, the dialectic materialism. Forget supernatural stuff. No. Forget the mystical body. Forget it. What it is that whatever the predominant theme is, the predominant values of a society, the revolutionary must. It's incumbent on the revolutionary to oppose them, to try to break them down, to change them, and by doing that, they'll create chaos, and out of the chaos will come a new order, which is called the synthesis. So you have the thesis, which is the predominant value, the antithesis, which is the revolutionary problematizing the classic value, and then the chaos, and out of the chaos comes the synthesis, which is dissolve and coagulate, which is one of the symbols, one of the slogans of the revolution. So again, so if society holds human life as valuable, then the revolutionaries, we promote abortion on demand to the day of birth. We oppose the capital punishment because so if someone kills somebody, they shouldn't be punished for that. I mean, there's nothing that sacred about human life, and so let's cut them a little slack here. Families have got to take second place to the state school system and penal institutions. The state's got to raise the kids, not the family. Religion must be kept strictly separated from the state and must not be allowed to criticize state laws and actions. In 1929, when Mussolini signed the pact with the Pope to reestablish Vatican City, after 1870, all the papal lands were taken away. One of those caveats was that the Catholic Church could not interfere with Italian politics. And I think they've shown that the Church has shown itself to be a loyal member of the New World Order recently. And so basically, the essence to progressivism is every type of deviant behavior must be affirmed. And that word affirmed shows up over and over again. Affirmative, gender-affirming healthcare. That's one of their favorite topics. Okay, so I mean, it even goes as far as trans species. There's this movement called Therianism, which basically my granddaughter's talking to me about how she identifies as a wolf. But it's not just saying, "Oh, I think wolves are nicer, my favorite animals." No, it's like identifying as a wolf in terms of like getting down on all fours and hopping around. This is this makes like it's just the next logical step, I guess, after transgenderism. Hopefully, it's something she will grow out of. But the Therians identify with these other species in everything except the physical, at every level except the physical. So that means morals, predation, sex habits, ethical behavior. This is really an attack on children. It's attack. And if you attack children, you're attacking society. All right. So I oppose these things. I believe in families. I would support churches. I believe in the moral law. I believe in a principle called subsidiarity, which means that government rules and actions should be done at the as local level as possible, as close to the point where the effects are going to be felt, as opposed to sucking all power to the top. That means a lot of Democrats accuse Republicans of being, quote, authoritarian. But it's just the opposite. The whole Republican philosophy for the last century has been small government, personal freedom, and the ending of wars. Think about the number of wars we've been in since the First World War. Woodrow Wilson, the great Democrat president, he swore he would not get us into that First World War, and by George, he did. Franklin Roosevelt made sure we got into the Second World War. And so, anyway, and our current administration seems to be determined to get us into World War III. This is not going to work out well. So for Junie, I went through her website and I just went through and picked out things that she had said. This is her website here, and Junie's perspective. Here's the issues. You'll see air pollution, climate change, criminal justice, drug use, and addiction. I just went through and read this thing and highlighted things that she said. So, this is interesting. This is the flags of sexual orientation and gender identity. This is one of the things about the gender-affirming healthcare that the liberals are so into. There are 30 different sexual identities highlighted in this little flag, and we'll have more to say about that later. Even straight gets the straight people get the black and white, really nice flag we get. So, so where was I? So I went through and I highlighted the points of the things that Junie said about these issues. Air pollution, based on bad corporate actions, who should be charged fees to pay reparations to people who suffer from bad air. When's my check coming? Climate change, again, she advocates climate change. She promotes it as like an existential threat to our society, and that we need to change the way we live. And as a state representative, she says she will advocate for land use changes. We need to meet our climate goals. So apparently, if we all live in high-density apartments with no yards, this will be good for the climate, and ride electric bicycles back and forth to wherever we're going. This is the utopia. Criminal justice, again, this is the progressive thing. The cause of crime is not criminals committing crimes. It's the economy, stupid. It's COVID. It's various hardships. It's trauma that lead people to criminal activity. Not human frailty, not human passions and appetites. Another type of, the idea of sinful behavior. No, it's basically external actions, and individuals are not responsible for their behavior. It's up to the government to spend money addressing the root causes of crime, i.e. social services and community resources. If only that were true, that we could live in a utopia. She doesn't believe that people should be jailed for drug possession. Again, she has this notion that minorities need to be held to a different standard because they've been abused. Like George Floyd was just another example of racism. The ignoring George Floyd. They spent an hour trying to coax him into the cruiser, and he refused to go. And so, morbidly obese, major drug problem, and the police use bad judgment. I grant, but there's personal responsibility here, which we can't overlook. And one of the troubling things that she wants to do is require DAs to track arrests and incarcerations by race, and make sure that if there's too many Vietnamese getting in trouble with the law, we got to stop arresting Vietnamese, or if there's too many Guatemalans getting in trouble with the law, whatever. We have to limit our law enforcement based on race. And of course, Junie wants to eliminate cash bail, because cash bail, if you don't have the cash, you commit a crime, you go to jail, and that's just not fair, because bad things happen in jail, and you knocked over a liquor store, you can't pay the bail. It's just not fair. So a drug addiction, and she opposed the Fentanyl Accountability Act, which would have made it a felony to have more than 1 gram of fentanyl. And not even that, it was the 4th violation. So you can get arrested with a gram of fentanyl 3 times. The 4th time, you're going to get charged as a felony. But that was too much. Just to point out that the lethal dose of fentanyl is 2 milligrams, so a gram is 500 lethal doses. Education, her biggest donors are the teachers' unions. She wants to use education to create and sustain our generation of workers, not citizens, workers. She wants to make sure that all of the teachers show cultural competency and diversity. I mean, it's like it's like the wild west out there. As long I don't even know what cultural competency is, and diversity. I'm not opposed to diversity, but that's not the number one criteria we should be using. Junie, again, the LGBT agenda must be respected and welcomed. Now, I have no idea what Junie's sexual orientation is. She hasn't broadcast that. But it just seems like she's promoting this, that everything she does has this LGBT element to it, and the whole idea of gender affirming healthcare and gender equity. It's just really, it seems to be the lens through which she sees the world. And the troublesome thing here is she wants to make sure all the teachers that are in the system have demonstrated no racism, no homophobia, no ableism. And again, who's going to make the decision? How does one get classified as racist? I mean, it seems to me that Junie's whole approach is racist, but it's just racist coming at it from the standpoint of from the minority perspective, and that I just think that this is it's really hypocritical. And then again, of course, the big brother, school districts must keep data to prove that they're meeting their cultural competency goals. You better not report the wrong data or you're going to lose your state funding. So again, there's some contradictory thinking in Junie's write-up, because she says she's a black woman, she's a black immigrant, so she's experienced the horrors of inequity. Again, she went through she came as 14-year-old as a Haitian immigrant. She got a college degree and a master's degree. She went to law school. I don't imagine they came over with buckets of money. How much of her education was paid for from scholarships? I don't know. But I suspect a significant amount probably was. And it seems to me that Junie, you can make the case that she's been given preferential treatment based on her racial background. Also, she got hired by the UN and USAID, which are those are pretty good jobs. and tell me that the affirmative action didn't help there. And she even goes on to confirm this because she complains that she thinks she's been given opportunities based on her race, not on her merits. So, I mean, I rest my case. Equity, again, equity is making all decisions from the standpoint of how they affect race. And she's made a statement here that says, sometimes you have to work against the interests of your own race in order to meet the needs of other races. Not all the time, but sometimes. And again, race is everything. Race is how you make your decisions. Hopefully you can work in the interests of your own race, but every so often you may have to toss a bone to the other races, which to me, that's racist. So gun violence, of course, Janie, she wants to limit guns, too many access to guns, easy access. And I agree with her that there are some people, there are people who are underage, people who are felons, people who are not citizens. I don't think a non-citizen should be able to buy a gun. People with mental illness, you name it. There are a lot of people who should not be able to obtain a firearm. I would like to make it harder for those people. Underage, under the age of 18, you should be able to. You should have your parent buy your firearm if they want you to have a rifle or a hunting rifle. She thinks that guns are a factor in police violence. So I guess we're going to disarm the police. And of course, she was in favor of the firearms ban, the statewide assault weapons ban, which I oppose because it is so vague. The definition, almost any rifle, almost any semi-automatic rifle could be classified as an assault weapon under these rules. I just think it's bogus. Her idea on homelessness, high rent. So if we could just I don't know how low you have to make the rent. So some guy coming in from out of state without a job, living in a tent, he can afford rent. That's not going to happen. She wants to address homelessness by providing more housing. And again, whenever I go out, when I walk by a homeless person, I always stop and talk to him. And I can tell you this: the vast majority of the homeless people that I run into are unemployed and couldn't pay rent if their life depended on it. And of course, to Junie, homelessness is another racial issue because she believes that most homeless people are they were black, indigenous people of color. And again, maybe Boulder's not the best sample for this, but when I talk to people on the street and ask them about how they're doing, how they got there, and what they need, the vast majority of them are white men that are unemployed. They got laid off. They were working in a factory, or they were, you name it. But the root cause was in the 80s, during the Clinton administration, when they shipped all the jobs out of this country to China and Mexico. Ross Perot argued about this, and they made a whole huge segment of the population surplus. Housing, Junie hates this. Again, she's a big enemy of historical zoning laws that have made it more difficult to have high density zoning everywhere. Just look around Boulder. Look at the apartments. They're springing up everywhere. That's like they're designed by the same computer program. They look like probably the same floor plan. None of them have yards. There's no access. They're on these crowded streets. To me, there's just like a hellscape, and I don't like these things at all. Junie wants to make it more difficult to evict tenants. Again, a war on landlords, and she believes that people have the right to housing irrespective of their ability to pay. And the thing is, that's just basically saying that if somebody shows up in town and they can't afford rent, the taxpayers have got to pay their rent. I appreciate collective bargaining in industrial positions where there's true competition, but in public agencies, especially school boards and public utilities, unions can be really a monopoly, and it can really drive up costs and be dictatorial. An interesting take on minimum wage is Junie believes that every city should be able to set its own minimum wage, and that in Boulder, that minimum wage should be $33.15 an hour, so that a worker can afford a two-bedroom apartment. Which, in other words, Junie believes that by making the minimum wage $73,000 a year to employ someone in Boulder, that's going to help things, and it's going to increase employment. It's going to make people be able to afford apartments. No, what it'll do is it'll just drastically reduce jobs available. McDonald's already is putting robots in, and they're doing everything they can to get people out of their restaurants. Workers out of their restaurants. It used to be a place where a kid could get a summer job. So there's a really sordid history of the minimum wage that we should be aware of. The founders of the eugenics movement pushed for minimum wage because they wanted to make the bottom end of the population unemployable. So the poor people who were unemployed, mostly minorities, black and minority people, they wanted to make them unemployable so that they could not raise a family. This was Margaret Sanger's idea. And here's the web. If you go to the John Locke Institute, here's the web. This is a link here that talks about it. It's worth reading, but it's ironic to see a black lady from Haiti advocating for a minimum wage that would make it drastically more difficult for minorities and low-skilled people to get employment. But I guess then they will just simply, the taxpayers would simply be supporting these people on the rolls. Reproductive justice. Junie wants free abortion for all, I'm sure, to the day of birth. So she wants taxpayer funding for abortion. She believes that basically something about childbirth is inhumane, and free abortion is the solution. You know, if you want to attack and destroy a society, just destroy the reproductive engine of that society. The replacement birth rate has got to be 2.1 children per woman. In the United States, it's 1.7, which means that we are drastically, we're headed for a population crash. And these people that are promoting unrestricted abortions are just adding that. They're throwing fuel on the fire. And of course, Junie wants to include abortion rights in the Colorado Constitution. Presumably, I'm sure that means publicly funded abortions to the day of birth in the Colorado Constitution. I don't know. I think that would make me want to leave the state. Tabor, Junie believes that anything that sets a limit on state spending must be gotten rid of, and i.e. Tabor. So she would like to eliminate Tabor so that the state could keep all excess revenue. The taxpayers simply are they're hosts to be fed upon in order to provide funding for all these programs. The true the clients in Junie's mind are the minorities, the criminals, drug addicts, you name it. The BIPOC people. It's not the citizens, especially not the citizens of House District 10. Okay, in transportation, Junie's big on electric cars. She believes electric cars will save the planet. They want to eliminate, again, she wants to eliminate exclusionary zoning to affect climate change. In other words, by that measure, India should be the most climate-friendly country in the world because it's probably one of the highest concentrations of people. And of course, she can't help it but pointing out that the root of climate change is racism. Again, I'm not sure how that works out. So, in conclusion, so I've added a few comments, but all the basic information about these issues is contained in the summary from her website. I'm just telling you, you cannot make this stuff up. And I'm urging all Republican and Independent and Democratic voters who oppose this complete concentration of power in the hands of a few state officials and largely many unelected regulators, that they oppose this. Send a message to Colorado's that we're going to push back on this, and you ought to seriously consider giving me your vote. Can you imagine? That would be one of the great events of the 20th century if Colorado sent a Republican to the State House. So I've lived here for 50 years, raised a family. I'm one of you. So I'm asking you for your support. Thanks, and God bless you all.